nerds, and welcome to a short episode of Veronica Explains. I'm Veronica, and today I'd like to briefly talk about Mastodon, Twitter, and why I'm not posting a big video telling everyone it's time to roll your own social media network. Now, I'm aware that talking about your social media habits is a great way to get attacked online. Everyone has opinions, and our society has a complex relationship between corporate media, device addiction, and global connectedness. So this isn't going to be a slam on Twitter or folks who want to keep using it. That being said, you can totally quit Twitter if you don't want to use it. If you're not happy on Twitter, you can leave, you can quit, you can shut it down. You don't even have to switch to a different social network. You can literally just stop. If it's making you feel bad, stop. There's life outside of Twitter, I promise. That's about all I want to say about Twitter at the moment because, frankly, the situation is changing rapidly. In any case, I prefer Mastodon to Twitter, and if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you're at least a bit curious about it. So what is Mastodon? Well, here's the short version. Mastodon is a social networking software built on ActivityPub, a decentralized protocol which allows users of different services to communicate with each other in a wider network known as the Fediverse. Some folks consider it like an open source version of Twitter, and if that helps you visualize it, fine. I think there's a lot more to it than that, though. You can send posts, often called toots, on one server, and folks can view them on other federated servers. In other words, unlike Twitter, MySpace, Facebook, or GeoCities, Mastodon isn't just one centralized platform. Different groups can host different servers for whoever they want, wherever they want. You might have a server for artists, a server for technologists, even a server for servers. You might want to run a server in your home lab, in a cloud provider, or even on a Raspberry Pi. Unlike Twitter, the options with Mastodon are fancy, flexible, and fun. If you want me to do a broader video covering Mastodon, let me know. I'm just trying to keep this one brief, so from here on out, I'm going to assume you already know what Mastodon is. So now that stuff is happening over at Twitter, a lot of folks are jumping ship to Mastodon. For what it's worth, I jumped ship in April as things started to get a bit dramatic over there on Twitter. My reasons for preferring Mastodon are really quite simple. Life is just too dramatic as it is, and I want my social networking to be a calming force and not an aggravating one. Mastodon's a great fit for me, and maybe it is for you too, but should you spin up your own instance right now? I don't think so. At least, probably not. Right now, the Fediverse is growing rapidly, and in my mind, that's a great thing. A lot of people are spinning up single-user instances of Mastodon, and that's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. But I worry a little bit that if you're new to the whole thing, spinning up your own instance is going to cause you to lose out on some of the possibilities of community building that comes from being on a smaller, shared instance. At present, as of the time I'm filming this, I'm on a great locally oriented instance. I have an excellent local timeline full of folks I actually know in real life. I think it's probably best for folks to try to join or build something similar for their local community or their specific affinity group online. What I worry about, based on experience talking with other users over the last 6 months, is that if too many folks build their own instances, the opportunity for community development and friendly assistance from experienced users will be lost. And that'll cause the network to stagnate. Another issue, perhaps an even more complicated issue, is that being an administrator takes work, particularly from a moderation standpoint. You might be less worried about this if you're just planning a single user Mastodon instance, but if you plan to host with your friends or community, you're going to have a solid game plan for how you're going to handle moderation, disputes, and all the other drama associated with running a social media network. I do worry that in the current climate, with so many folks flocking to Mastodon, this work might fall by the wayside, and that'll cause the reputation of the Fediverse to suffer in the meantime. All that aside, I've been tempted periodically to spin up my own single-user instance, primarily to avoid adding strain to my mods. I worry about that sometimes as a person making stuff on the internet, and if you're in a similar boat, I think it's fair to consider the impact that you will have on the communities you participate in. Even so, we're at a particular stage in Mastodon's development where I'm not convinced we need more servers, so much as I think we need more users who care to make it a great platform. If I ever spun up my own Mastodon instance, I figure I'm going to be spending between $10 and $15 a month on a virtual private server. So I just kick that money to my local admins to help cover costs, and I feel pretty good about that. What's exciting about this isn't necessarily owning your own data. I mean, come on, you can own your own data just by typing all of your thoughts into a text document. What's exciting here is building actual community. Twitter did enable that. Plenty of activists and citizen journalists have built momentum using the platform. Mastodon feels like the earliest days of that in the best possible way. A return to form for online networking. Almost like the BBS is back. But remember, many folks who've been around the block with BBSs say we need to make sure we don't end up with too many sysops. And that resonates with me as someone who cares more about the connections than the cacophony. Now, don't confuse what I'm saying with just join one of the big instances, because that's not my recommendation at all. Instead, my recommendation is to consider joining a smaller, more niche instance that fits your vibe. I think you'll be happier in the long run. And in the end, isn't that what's most important? Now, I'm not saying I'll never run my own instance. After all, never say never. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You do you. I just think we should be careful about our steps here as we build communities online together. And we should give some serious thought to building up a community instead of standing up more silos. Anyway, social media is weird. If you want to stay on Twitter, be my guest. If you want to throw your computer into the sun, be my guest. Anyway, here's Bop It.
Flick it. Bop it.
Such a nerd.